Today's episode of the aircraft alphabet is the letter B, and I have chosen one of my personal favorite planes along with the biggest bomber of World War II, the B-29. The B-29 was a huge jump in aviation technology, being the first large cabin aircraft to have a pressurized cabin. It was also the first aircraft to have a dual-wheel tricycle landing gear, and was also the first aircraft to incorporate an FCS or fire control system. What that fire control system allowed the crew to do was that one gunner and one fire control officer could operate up to 5 remote control turrets from the front of the plane. Like I said earlier, it was the first large cabin aircraft to have a pressurized cabin, and so when it was in design and development, the engineers were faced with a problem. Obviously, it's a bomber, so they were faced with the problem of, do you pressurize the entire cabin and then depressurize it to drop the bombs? Or do you section off the bomb bay and have that be just depressurized the entire time? What the engineers decided on was that they were going to just have the bomb bay sectioned off from the rest of the plane, and that would be depressurized the entire time during flight, meaning that the crew could go from one end of the plane to the other, even during a bombing run. Being one of the most innovative planes of World War II, that comes with an enormous overhead cost in 2 main places. First place being design and development. The B-29 was the most expensive project of World War II, being $3 billion at the time, which is roughly $53 billion today. The second part of that is because it was so technologically advanced for its time, it was plagued with issues at the beginning of its service life. The B-29 had so many issues at the beginning of its service life that by 1943, there were 100 aircraft that were in service, but of those, only 15 were actually airworthy. U.S. Army General Henry Hap Arnold was put in charge of fixing this issue, and his solution was to move workers from production into maintenance. Because of this, by April of 1944, the United States Army Air Corps had 150 airworthy and combat-ready B-29s. Since the 1970s, there have been several B-29 airframes that have turned up, with 2 of those being restored to airworthiness and 1 that is currently under restoration. One of these aircraft is Doc, owned by Doc's Friends Incorporated out of Wichita, Kansas, and the other is Fifi, owned by the Commemorative Air Force out of Dallas, Texas. Also, if you didn't already know, the B-29 was responsible for dropping both the atomic bombs to end World War II. The first B-29 responsible for dropping Little Boy was piloted by Paul Tibbets, and that bomb was dropped on August 6th of 1945. The second bomb, known as Fat Man, was dropped by a B-29 known as Boxcar, and that was piloted by Charles W. Sweeney, and that bomb was dropped on August 9th of 1945. Both these aircraft have survived and are currently on display, with Enola Gay being at the Stephen F. Udvar Hazy Center and Boxcar being displayed at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. That is today's video for the aircraft alphabet. That was the letter B for the B-29.